Okay. This is the Park and Recreation Advisory Commission. It's Thursday, January 8th at 5 p.m. I'm going to call to order. Can I get approval on the agenda? Make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ew.
Carried.
Carried. All right, now I'm going to open up to open forum. There's nobody here. Okay, and the department report.
Awesome, thank you. For those that may be tuning in, we do have Bruce Imholt, reporting in from Florida. He is on Zoom with us. And we also have Dave Reese, city engineer, here as well. So department report. We are in the thick of hockey season. And so the rink opened December 20th. It was a very pleasant holiday break for everyone, winter break. The rink was very well used. We have all the warming house open, staff are trained in, and we are experiencing some issues with the Zamboni. So we continue to troubleshoot that. We've got it working and it goes down. We get it working, it goes down. So I think hopefully we're through most of that. But for those that don't know, it's a very old Zamboni, and usually has some issues each year. So if you're wondering, with some of the ice conditions, we've had some struggles with the maintenance, and then obviously warm temperatures make for soft ice. So recreation wise, basketball started last night, and we have over almost 40 participants in basketball this year between the two age groups. And unfortunately, we had to cancel pond hockey because we did not have enough registrants this year. So we have time for play going. That continues into and through March. The Gull Lake Trail project, mostly we're working on the Nisswa Lake Park portion of it, that amended scope with the trail and the bathroom addition. So we did get the bathroom ordered. As a reminder, it's going to look similarly to what we installed at Between the Lakes Park. So it's a precast concrete, same color, same kind of style. This one will be flushing though. So I do have a copy of the layout here if you guys want to see that. There's a whole lot of constraints and a lack of options on where to put things. So we've been in contact with the DNR regarding all of it. But the plan is to kind of finalize the layout, the budget, and get kind of a stamp of approval from City Council, go get quotes, and then go get those approved by City Council again. Circling back kind of on a community center item, I was approached by a community member and I wanted to bring it to you guys just as a sounding board. They had an idea of, or see a need for like community events in there. The example they used was like getting a caterer and having dances, line dancing, whatever kind of dancing. Wanted to kick it to you guys and just kind of get your feedback in your areas of the community. If you think the community may have interest in something like that at the community center, and then subsequently, if or to what extent there would be an additional involvement from the city and what may or may not be feasible, appropriate. Just kind of wanted to talk, get your ideas on that.
That's well, I guess from a city staff perspective, like, I mean, with something like that, how much manpower would we have and or want to have in something that's probably geared more towards the evenings between setup, having staff there, and then take down, clean up, like, I don't know how that works with like the wedding, if somebody were to have a wedding there. I don't exactly know all the operations behind that, but just from a city standpoint, would the city have any interest in staffing something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And immediately when this was brought to me, my mind goes right to logistics and how staff, time, turnover, things like that, what that would even look like. Their suggestion was weekly over the winter. And my first thought is we likely don't have the staffing or we need to change our operation. And so typically, say for like a wedding, we don't have it staffed. They pick up a key, they do their setup, they do their cleanup, it's kind of self-containing. They find their own caterers, and then so we just rent the facility. And so kind of bringing this to you guys before a lot of details would be even ironed out. Because not really sure to what extent the community may be interested in participating in things like this. Obviously, we run various recreation programs. From that staffing lens, I don't think we'd have the capacity to help find caterers, things like
Yeah.
that. I would see it
Amber.
more as we rent the facility. Bruce?
Amber, is this person suggesting that the city run these events? Is that their proposal?
It was more of a collaborative effort.
So would people sign up for it ahead of time so you know that this space was actually gonna be utilized? Is that how the format
And
is?
I kind of said, well, we typically rent the facility
Yeah,
and we would have to recoup that cost.
yeah.
Details from there, I don't know.
I mean, I guess my own personal opinion is if this was, even if it was in collaboration with the city, I would have a hard time believing that there would be much momentum into a lot of these events. You know, the city is going to, I mean, they operate by the day to day. I feel like if either businesses took the lead or like a Lions Club or they rotated, I think they could gain a little bit more momentum. They'd want to market it. They'd want to do bigger and better. And I think more people would maybe get on board versus if you partner with the city, I just kind of like our marketing for the park. It's just like it's hard for anybody to like really ramp things up, especially if it's on a scheduled. I just feel like I could see that dying pretty quickly unless there was, take the Lions. I don't know how many people participate in the Lions, but it's a group of people, and so it's a group of people that are going to be excited for their event that they're going to host at the community center. They can market it, they can, theme it, they can do whatever they want. So I could see it maybe going that direction where you kind of rotate who hosts, but I don't know, how much.
So you kind of see it, the city's role in it maybe more as what it currently is as we just
I think
allow
this-
the rental.
I think the city allows the rental and we stop at that.
Would say the same
Yeah,
thing.
and Paul, I'm with you 100% because I've been through this myself already. I think having the city try to, like you said, try to market it and organize it, it just isn't going to be the same. But if you get an organization behind it, like you mentioned, the Lions, I mean, if they go out and market and get people and want to promote something, that's great. But I'm with you. Whatever you said there, I'm with you.
Agreed.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that.
Unless Amber, you really want to take the lead and market some events.
I do like making flyers.
Amber, was the question specifically tied to the community center? Was that?
It was specifically tied to the community center, not at local establishments.
Yeah, I mean, it is a good space and it could be utilized more. But again, I have a hard time believing that one, the city is gonna want to do something like that, and two, if it's gonna gain any momentum.
Thought it was cost prohibitive for them to rent it each week. Is that why they were looking for?
No, just I think more just with a desire for a collaborative effort and kind of wanting to stay busy and provide opportunity.
Gotcha. Okay.
I believe is where the lens was coming from.
Yeah, okay.
I do think Amber needs more stuff to do.
I'm here for the flyers, man. I like flyers. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Moving on, we don't have anything under old business. Several items under new business here tonight. First up is filling the commission vacancy. So Sherry is leaving the Parks Commission. The new term begins February 1st. So in your packet, you guys have an application from Stephen. Paul and I did meet with him earlier in December. Paul, you can certainly add comments. But yeah, that's our recommendation to you guys, to make the recommendation to City Council. Happy to answer questions, though.
Yeah, I thought he is a great candidate. I think we all bring different aspects to the board. I think he worked for the DNR. He has a lot of knowledge in grant writing. He's helped with some of the Gull Lake Trail stuff. I think he would be a great member to the board. So I would, if there is no other comments, I would make a motion to, I don't know how to word it. Make
To
a motion
recommend to
to,
City Council.
yeah.
Second year motion?
Okay. We can do a roll call vote since Bruce is online with us. Bruce,
Aye.
Alyssa,
Yeah, aye.
Paul, Dan.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Excellent. Next up on the agenda is the community center quotes. So if you guys go all the way back to last April and March, we did a walkthrough of the community center, looking at various things. This was collaborative with members of city council as well. And so we have the minutes from that meeting in here. In November, I was able to meet with both High Tech and Norson. Did a full walkthrough just as we did in April. Wanted them to look at everything and talk about everything just to see if they see anything different. Talking through a lot of that. And so from those conversations, we have two very different proposals. Norson proposed services to create the quote and manage the project. High Tech went through the steps and actually gave the cost to do the work. So they're distinctly different proposals. Bringing this to you guys now, to talk about the scope and revisit that to make sure that this is indeed everything that we need on the list, or if anything can be removed from the list. And talking about that, and then just kind of how we want to attack the proposals or make a recommendation to council on anything. When looking at state statute, anything over 175,000 needs a sealed bid. From 25,000 to 175,000, it's okay to get multiple quotes. These were the two proposals we received, distinctly different though. So if you guys would like further comparison quotes, we can go down that route. But just want to open up to feedback regarding the scope of work and then how to proceed with proposals.
Amber, when you put the proposal out, did High Tech follow through in terms of what you requested, or was there some confusion with Norson on what they were supposed to give us?
Nope. When I spoke with Norson, they felt that their best method was to do this proposal to get the city's blessing before going forward with obtaining kind of all these individual contracted areas. From the carpet, like flooring to plumbing to electrical. And when I spoke with High Tech, they were willing to talk to all those different subcontractors and put it together.
And do we have experience with High Tech from the city standpoint of, have they done work for the city before?
We do. They have done work within the community center on the kitchen, and then they recently did City Hall, some of the updates with the roof and those items.
And we've been happy with their work?
I believe so.
Yes, I would say they've done a really nice job. They're easy to work with.
I might be missing it. Do I see an expiration date on this quote? Is there,
Um, I don't remember. I don't believe on high tech.
yeah,
Not-
that would be the only one that would have, just because there's
Okay.
dollars on it, the other one.
No, and I've been working with high tech through the month of December, so it was actually not December 30th was when the final revision of it.
Okay, so this is pretty recent.
It's very recent, yes.
Amber, I guess my question would be, there's been some humming and hawing on, the future of the community center. There's been different ideas as far as, how much money they want to put into it. Do we want to repurpose it? Do we want, has the council given any more input on like, are we just going to keep it exactly as is, or do we want to look at not necessarily a totally different use, but bigger upgrades than even this, additions, or is it really just bringing it back to where it needs to?
No, not that I've gathered, and from our walkthrough back in April, I didn't get any indication that the trajectory of that operation would change.
Sure.
Has there been further dialogue or additional discussion? No.
Yeah. With pricing like this, not to say that, it would be bad to do the necessary, replacements and cost updates and maintenance that's needed to bring it back up to compliance. But with these dollar amounts, I feel like it warrants at least the question of, hey, do we look at, instead of putting $150,000 into bringing it up to what it is already, is there something that we can, put that money towards to, better utilize that building? What that is, I don't know, but
Well, right, I think the question I would have is what is the vision, the intended purpose of that building? I mean, there's how it's been used, but then just does city council have any ideas about like, this is what we'd love to do for the city with this building? Or is it just a meeting place for when we do, city hall meetings and?
Yeah, and that really wasn't a part of the master plan process. We didn't dive deep into that. And I don't think there's any standout items within the comprehensive plan either. So it certainly is, a question. I think we did bring it up at some point earlier on in the dialogue, but I don't recall a substantial answer.
And is there any urgency on these items?
No, that's the other thing. We just know that some of these items are coming due. Kind of the biggest thing when you look at the basement repairs, that's kind of where the most like damage lies.
I didn't know that basement.
Yeah. In a lot of when we talked about the exterior, so like the basements get water in them. And so one thing that's not a part of this is kind of addressing the water that gets into the basement. And we're looking at tackling some of that stuff more with the parking lot and the upcoming road bond versus like this component. So yes, a lot of it's cosmetic, some of it's functional, like moving floor vents to the wall, things like that. Making some of the repairs in the basement. The carpet's coming due, it is holding up. And when we talked in April, we kind of talked about making it one project to reduce downtime.
So I did do the tour back in April and there was several city council people there. And number one, to address Paul's question, I didn't get the feeling, because I did bring up to the council members about, what is the long-term, what is the long-term approach or mission for the community center? And I got the feeling nobody thought it was anything other than what it is now, which is, there are some weddings there right, Amber? And then the Lions use it, Lions use it pretty much frequently or
Twice a
monthly.
month. Yep.
Yeah. So in answer to that question, I don't know that there was any appetite from the council members I talked to of anything more than maintaining it. And then to answer Dan's question, I do think since we've gotten a quote and there are some things that need to be done. Wasn't there some things in the bathroom too, Amber, I thought?
Yeah, there's a few different things within the bathroom. What's quoted is more of a full gut job, for everything from toilets, partitions, tile, new vanities, all of it. And within that, there is relocating the floor, their vents are in the floor and bringing them into the walls. So that is
So-
a little bit of a change.
So I guess my point here is we got the quote. Well, there's maybe not an urgency. I think the work needs to be done, and the longer we put it off, it's probably just going to become more expensive. So my feeling is I'd like to see us move forward. Recommending it anyway to the council. I'd see what they want to do about the dollars, but I'd at least propose, and I'll make that motion that we recommend to the council to accept the high-tech quote.
Is this ballpark where you thought it would land? Yeah.
Okay, so Bruce has a motion to accept high-tech's, or to recommend a council to accept high-tech's quote. Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Dan?
So Bruce, the whole thing, the whole proposal?
Yes,
So, the whole proposal as indicated?
yes,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We will do a roll call, starting with you, Bruce,
yes.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. One thing that I didn't talk about, so we do have the funds in the capital reserve to cover this quote. It does use all of it. So, there's an allowance in here for certain damage on the outside, the exterior. And we would do kind of a change order type thing if there's above or below that allowance.
So, I'm not sure who's chairing the meeting, but I mean, my comment here is the same one I've made before. The council has authorized 500,000 transfer, but we've had indications that there's a fundraising committee that, is willing to help raise funds for the playground and the related improvements. My feeling or my goal would be to, we're not going to get anybody that's going to want to sponsor 140,000 to remodel the community center. That's not something you can go to a business or organization to say do that. Although the Lions may help us out there, but hopefully we can find the fundraising dollars that the city doesn't have to use the whole 500,000 that they've authorized, and maybe some of those dollars can then be reallocated to the community center. And I've actually mentioned that to both the mayor and a couple of other city council folks. I haven't necessarily got a yay or nay on that, more just trying to plug that with them and see how this fundraising goes.
Yeah, and the community center has its own separate budget, so that makes it a little bit unique here. So yes, that is always a good thing to keep in the back of our mind. And fortunately, we've been putting some money away knowing that these repairs and updates are coming down the pipeline. So pending no drastic snafus through the process, we've saved adequately to cover what's on this list.
We have a capital reserve fund specifically for the community center.
Correct.
That would cover this.
Yes, so that would not
Okay.
touch the park funds
Gotcha.
as proposed.
That's great.
Okay, awesome. Moving on to the park. So like I said, we have Dave here tonight. In December, the commission, recommended that we bring to city council, re-engaging in our proposal for engineering services, along with the recommendation to transfer funds to parks. So to just give everyone a recap, City Council did authorize re-engaging with Woodseth. We brought before you tonight in your packet is the original proposal. So we can re-engage with them in terms of this proposal and going forth with the DNR outdoor rec grant. They did approve transferring 500,000 and they did rescind on local option sales tax. So we will not be going forward with a local option sales tax. Are we all caught up to speed?
Mhm.
Okay. So we have Dave here tonight, because we want to make sure that we are correctly directing them on what we need them to be working on with the goal of the grant. So in your packet, you have the original proposal with some updates on work that's already been done. And then what I believe where we're headed with this grant. So you have a little bit on kind of the parking lot and like I mentioned, looking at that with the upcoming road bond, kind of removing the pickleball specs, but making sure that the location is identified. And so bringing it to you tonight with Dave here, so you guys we can all talk it out and be on the same page about what we're going forward with. It's my understanding that we will be applying for the playground portion of the park in the DNR grant this next cycle, utilizing the transferred funds as the matching dollars. Is that what we're all in agreement on?
Correct.
We're understanding that correctly? Okay, so
Is DNR, sorry to interrupt you, DNR matched up to 300,000, is that what it is, or?
it did go up to 500,000,
Okay,
yes.
okay,
And so in going through a lot of the materials, they did raise the amount.
okay,
They've added various different criterias of
sure.
things that you gotta find for them and answers to questions. So in your packet, I'm still recommending that $700,000 playground budget that we kind of from the get-go set out with.
Okay.
And then I think as we get further into the budgeting, there's probably gonna be a few other things where maybe there's some restoration work, maybe it's some trees or, native vegetation or something. So I'm not exactly sure what the budget will look like, but the playground, trying to figure out the allowances for concrete and things like that. And so with like the playground company will design what's inside the playground container and then working with Woodseth on kind of the surrounding areas, tying it all together, the connectivity. For the grant specifically, if we're putting in a sidewalk, we need like the cross section of that sidewalk.
Okay.
So Woodseth is kind of like putting the whole kit and caboodle together with some very specific plans that are required for the grant. And then the playground company will design the playground portion based on what we tell them we want.
And Amber, I know we had this discussion last time, and just through your little bit of digging and as you're filling out this grant, have you understood exactly how much detail the DNR is wanting as far as how final they want plans?
I asked specifically on like the playground, because this is a very tight timeline to get revisions completed. And I said, how final does final have to be? And we are allowed to swap out items. We will need to give them a final design, but if you're gonna go from like this spinner to that spinner, like you're pretty good as long as it's within the spirit and it's not drastically changing
Sure.
kind of the scope. We are allowed to make some changes. And then like they're specific on the sidewalk, it has to be 5 feet wide and we're gonna, 5 feet wide by 4 inches deep and whatever base and right? It's that simple, right, Dave?
Yep, yeah, provide the details. Show the routes, show the
Yeah.
connectivity, show the ADA compliance, meeting those types of things.
Sure.
And, you know, provide a basic overall plan that makes sense to the grant administrator. And as it goes through the process, you know, there's a pre-approval and then a final approval if you're selected.
Yeah, and so within the grant, they require things like maps, photos. So some of this was that will be helping compiling various components of the grant. But for here tonight, just making sure that we have the correct scope of work and what we need to direct Widseth on, any feedback they need on like overall layout, connectivity. They've been working on it for the last week and a half again.
Yeah, I'm just thinking with a $700,000 budget, even though you can eat that up pretty quick. I mean, that does give you a lot of flexibility in the design. And I do know that like fall protections are pretty significant. So I'd almost rather see us start big and then reduce it if necessary, but I don't know, again, how much flexibility the DNR is gonna have with us, but just to make sure we have the proper amount of, or even above and beyond what maybe is needed, and then we can bring it down from there.
And I would, in my other grant experiences, kind of what you say you're gonna match is what you're required to match.
Okay.
So
But we're,
relatively close.
but in response to Paul's point there, Amber, just because we apply for 350 or 500,000 doesn't mean we'll get that either.
Also correct. It's a very competitive grant.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Is there anything that will give us a leg up on others?
In talking with the DNR, they do have, you are allowed to submit it in advance for feedback. So I think that's something we really want to do. So I'm trying to make sure I hit that deadline to have a kind of feedback review process. And then it's really kind of how it ties into like the priorities and kind of circling back on all of that. Like safety is a really big one. And what, however, we can kind of tie into some of that stuff. And it's not, and I specifically asked about playground surface material. And there's other things besides just that that will tie into all of this. And so how we can speak to that will matter. Outside of that, I'm not sure
Okay.
if there's anything that will give us a leg up or not.
Yeah. Can you see who received it last year?
I did, yeah.
Okay,
It doesn't, it just kind of says the entity and
okay,
project
okay.
and amount.
I wonder if there's anything that, you know, we could take from those.
Yeah, and I didn't see any materials,
Or
but
trends or anything that,
not that necessarily caught my eye. But in the next section of your packet, there is some, just two kind of sections on playgrounds and trails, and so you can see kind of like the little snippet of what they're
okay.
looking for. In that, in your packet, you guys had, a graphic for the location of the playground. This is my handy dandy work here. Drawing boxes on the paper. So if you guys remember this one, this is the original concept for the playground location. And I think through all of our dialogues, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are in agreement that we are going to work around the warming house. So that's not impacted. And so when talking with the playground company, they wanted to know, they need to know the size and shape of our container, and then if there's any way it can be expanded. And so in talking with Widseth, we're like, do we want full rectangle, like, you know, a bean shape? Yeah, you know, just kind of those things. And I've kind of just earmarked this area to fit it in. But if there's further, if anyone has a really strong desire for a certain shape, now is your time to speak.
I don't have anything with shape. I was just curious about the trees that are existing. Are all of those going to be cut down?
There's probably potential. I think when I was starting to write some of this grant, we could probably write in some restoration and replanting of trees and things like that, and we could probably put some money on that in the grant.
This is just more personal. So many of those kids climb those trees.
Yes.
You know, so.
It would definitely impact several of them.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I would be very mindful of what we replant because that's also our shade and
Yeah,
keeping the nature
yeah, yeah.
present.
Do we anticipate the shape would impact a decision about like a walkway around it or whatever? Is that?
I do have that question here for you guys, as to in conceptually, they had the sidewalk separated from like playground container. So like right now, we have a curb as our container. Or we can have the sidewalk right up to it.
But that would shrink, the.
So that's kind of all things that we need to talk about. I have a couple examples of like sidewalks right up to it, having benches within the playground or outside the playground. Just a curb, sidewalk, curb, various things like that. Bench in the curb or in the sidewalk. So right now we just kind of have an area, a big old area. But what Woodstock needs to do is figure out that exact size and shape for inside the playground to give to the playground company for them to design it. And then for us, it'd be really beneficial to know the sidewalk's going to be right next to it. Sidewalks, we don't need sidewalks around it. We're only going to have sidewalks to it.
Personally prefer the sidewalk by it, like, yes, just from a stroller, grandparent, not tripping, you know, because I do know that sometimes it gets really tight at the park right now if there's more than 2 strollers, because you can't, and then your kids are over there and you have to be over here with baby. It's really like hard to navigate the park from a mom of multiple children.
Yeah, I would agree, circling the sidewalk, there's just the like safety of your children and
Yeah.
the fact that you can track your kids from
Yeah.
a distance wherever you're at. It's really convenient.
And I think it's, for the extra amount of money, it's an efficient way, cause you're already putting in concrete curb. We're already getting them out there. It's a little bit more concrete and maybe just a touch more work, but not a significant amount for the value that I think it gains versus just a curb.
Yeah, local examples would be the Jenkins Playground and the Pine River Playground, is what comes to my mind when I see these things. I know we've received a lot of feedback through all the planning processes, that sight lines, visibility, and then, yeah, to your point of accessibility, strollers, maybe kids want a scooter, all the things, making it wide enough. My recommendation would not be to put the bench in the walkway.
Yeah.
Right.
To have the bench off of the walkway or then within
Smart.
the park.
Yeah.
So couple of different ideas here. Dave, do you have specific questions from your guys' end that you've kind of been looking at, working through, wrestling with?
Well, I think just getting a sense of, kind of a consensus from you on what your expectations are. Is it to maximize the area? That's kind of the direction we're understanding. We can do that within the bounds of the area that we've surveyed out there. And we know where the warming shed is. We can work around that. And then, another thing that's important is the sequencing and phasing of these improvements to work with the rest of the project that's underway with the city, and that's the parking lot.
Mhm.
And so, you know, making the sidewalk connections make sense and associated with parking lot improvements is important for us to know, you know, that we're in sync with the park plan that way. And ultimately, you know, when we get in the thick of design, making sure this is going to drain properly and knowing that there's some issues with the community center, we're going to take that into consideration. But, you know, I recall Joe Hall mentioning that, you know, the phasing of this is important, and he wanted us to play a role in helping to develop that.
Yeah, so in December, the Parks Commission wrestled with that quite a bit, looking at playground first, then pickleball, and finally everything else. The whole warming house, maintenance garage, that half of the park would be at some later time. So I think what I take from that is that the warming house and the existing garages are all staying where they're at. With the kind of shifting of the playground shape, there's a little bit more elevation change as you go east towards the softball field. So it's not significant, but there is a slope. So keeping that in mind as we try and tie it in together, going piece by piece. And then there's utilities under everything, and so making sure that we move what we need to move appropriately. Playground company specifically said they recommend not having utilities run under the playground. So just really diving in, making sure we look at that. For comparison, the original playground and concept were about 10,000 square feet. So I think that's kind of what we've been shooting for in terms of size. And I'm hearing that we don't have a strong preference on exact shape. But yeah, just kind of shooting for
Yeah. it's hard
maintaining
to-
that 10,000.
Thinking about shape is tough without, like, I'm just picturing. Okay, so I'm looking at a picture here with a curved shaped park with a tree next to it. Right? Well, there's no, like, whatever you do, there's no saving trees. Right, too much is coming up. So, yeah, it's just interesting, like, if you could save a tree, I'd love to change the, you know, the shape would really, but if we're not if we're not saving any trees, or I don't know, maybe if, like, so one of the things that my wife and I talk a lot about is just what this is gonna do for the shade for the park, right? There's just not gonna be any for a long time, if ever, depending on what we put back.
Mhm.
And I just want to be really thoughtful about that.
I agree.
And I think shade for a park is a really big deal.
Huge.
So again, I don't know what that means for the shape, but I'd really like for us to make sure that we think about that before we decide on.
And it's hard too, because fall protection a lot of times dictates the shape. I mean, if you want as many swings as we currently have, offhand, I don't exactly know, but it's about double the size of, you know, if you have 10-foot high swings, you gotta go 20 feet out on both sides. And so you stack up 8 swings, you know, you're looking at 40 feet by whatever. And so, you know, your edge is sometimes gonna be dictated on that. And I like the idea of having some interesting curvature. I mean, you look at some of the pictures here, it's a little bit more interesting than just a square, rectangle playground. And you can use some curves to your advantage to maybe save some trees, as Dan was saying. But yeah, sometimes the design is gonna dictate it too.
Yeah, so when Paul's talking about fall height, this is kind of their layout of that. So you have a 5-foot fall height area in like the 2 to 5 land, and then through half of the 5 to 12 playground is a 7 foot fall height, and then as you get into the taller structures and the swings, it goes to an 8 foot.
So, okay, just looking at this design, you have that notch out there. How, Dave, and I feel like we know each other. Is Reese?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Evan and Jess and I swam together. Dan Nichols, Ethan.
Oh,
Nichols.
okay.
Sorry. Reconnecting to someone I haven't talked to in a long time.
Oh, dang, Danny.
Yeah, it's been a while. Right. I celebrated New Year's Eve at his house when I was like 16 years old. Yeah, right.
I'm not old.
So to the conversation though, like not considering how long it's gonna take for the tree to grow, it makes me so sad. But how close can you put a tree to, like, if you got that, how close can you get a tree? Can you get it like, in just the idea of provision of shade and like, is that something we can think about in 20, 30 years? Is that a real thing where we can kind of recapture that?
Yeah, again, it all goes back to expectations of, what do you really want to see there? Is it a grand oak tree, with a big wide shade circumference? I think everybody knows that kind of the drip line is kind of generally speaking the root zone that trees will expand out to. And so, you know, placing or planting a tree that you're expecting to have something like a 20 or 30-foot shade zone should really be kind of that far away. Otherwise, the roots will tend to start going underneath the concrete and heaving that in time. You could probably go a little bit closer and sneak it in so you can get the shade benefit, but still you need to kind of weigh that a little bit.
I think another two additional thoughts. One, falling from above, limbs and things like that, trimming from a maintenance standpoint, that's something we look at. So there's overhead clearance and not creating a safety hazard that way. Two, we can look at it from the design of the playground and what, if we need canopies, if we want a park shelter in closer proximity. Like if you've been to Cross Lake, they have just a one-angled roof really close, and so that provides very close proximity shade. So another way of looking at how to provide shade, not just with trees. Again, we love trees. We want to keep trees in the park. I'm all for that. And there's other ways to keep it maybe closer to the playground that ties in that way. Or within the playground, what kind of coverings are we picking?
We also talked briefly about putting some trees in for another reason, and that was fly balls
Yeah.
potentially. So on that side where the ball field is, strategically placing some landscape trees to be more of a barrier.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm kind of blurring engineering and playground design here because let's roll with it. So we're all in for sidewalks as the border. Shape can morph a smidge, but looking for a rather sizable playground within that area that was identified. In terms of the playground design and talking with the playground company, you guys saw the feedback from way back in last March. Any new thoughts, different thoughts, things you want to see in a revision?
Just generally speaking about the playground.
Yes,
the whole
and
thing.
also surface material, because I know that's going to come up.
Yeah, it's hard with such a big budget and big design. Feel like I have 1,000 thoughts, but at the same time, it's hard to. Yeah, I'm always more so, they're rushing into this and not having a ton of flexibility is what's kind of getting me right now, because I'd
Yep.
much rather take like a custom approach to something like this.
Mhm.
But time is not on our side right now. That's where I'm struggling with this design. Not to say this is not a good design, I'm just saying with this budget, it would be fun to really bring something unique to Nisswa. Cause I mean, with my experience doing this, I know that there's a lot that you can do with the topography, with different surfaces, different colors, different custom play elements, that maximize the playground even without equipment.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I don't like the timeline for playground revision. It's a lot of money to make decisions on something that's gonna last for a long time. And there's so many specific things to talk about. I mean, my wife and I, we lived in the cities for, 10 years, visited a ton of different parks. And there's just so many little things that are worth evaluating, so many different ways that like you can really curate something that works for the community that you're in, that represents the community that you're in. And you just can't do that on this timeline. And I know that the grant has been the big conversation or one of the big conversations in all of this, but I'd hate to rush and get a generic looking park in Nisswa for $650,000.
Can I ask this, can we review the timeline again? And, would it be possible to either as a group hold a couple of special meetings, or if a couple of us want to break off to like a committee and maybe like, and I'm not trying to like dictate the design of this playground, but just help speed things up. If
Yeah.
we want to put a little bit more time into it, like break off as a subcommittee, have flagship recreation come in here, you would be the one, running those meetings, Amber.
Yeah.
But like, hey, for the next month, we meet weekly, and have these meetings to really try to like narrow in and see if it's even possible to, get a little bit more custom with this and still meet our deadlines. But I need to get refreshed on exactly the timeline that we're up against.
Yeah, so what's in your packet is just, we know the grant submission deadline is March 31st. We know when our Parks Commission meetings are. You see February 27th is, the feedback deadline to have like the narrative submitted by. Design would be helpful to go with a narrative. And then I think it'd be a really good idea to re-engage the public, since we haven't had any sort of feedback since the open houses back with the master plan. I think it would be beneficial to invite the public to see a revision, to get some feedback from them. I think, Paul, there's absolutely a way that we could have some subcommittee meetings or toss in more meetings. And then again, with talking with the grant, like you can make some revisions after your submission. It does need to stay within like the spirit and
Sure.
pathway, right? But it's not
Mhm.
like it has to be absolutely committed to that exact design. And that was my understanding of it. So
Can I ask?
So,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead,
well,
Bruce.
so I hear this about, wanting to have uniqueness, and I'm fine with all of that. And if you guys want to have a couple of people meet with Amber and the playground committee or playground company, I'm all for that. I guess I would just bring up though that number one, I mean, I know we had this a year ago, we had the meeting about the design. It was one of the first meetings I was on the park board for. So, I know this has been vetted before, and um, I'm a little concerned that if we start talking about wanting to delay this, You know, right now we've got the council on board. They're fired up. They've agreed to transfer the money. We've got a fundraising committee out there that's fired up, supposedly anyway. I guess, you know, that's in my mind still waits to be seen. But I would be concerned that if all of a sudden we miss this grant deadline and now we're another year or more down the line, that the momentum we've established here goes away. So Paul, if you and Dan or whoever want to meet over the next couple of weeks, that's great. But I know, Amber, didn't you have a February meeting in there for the public?
Yes, I do. I have that
I,
listed as
I would
Tuesday,
hate to
February 10th.
I would hate to miss that meeting, and I would hate for us not to be able to submit a grant this year. Then I just feel like our momentum is gone. So, you know, that's just my thought.
And when I talked with the playground company, in part where this timeline came from, they indicated that they need about 2 weeks to do revisions.
Okay.
So whatever feedback we can give them, they're in getting the shape of the playground, they're gonna have 2 weeks to get us that information for then us to look at it in February at our meeting. It's not uncommon for playground designs to go 8, 10, 12 rounds of revision.
Yeah.
That's not uncommon.
Does the playground company need elevation drawings, or is just a plan view or a 2D drawing suffice?
I know they asked for the shape file and a little bit of that, but Dave, you can
Yeah.
go in.
That's what we intended was, you know, try to get this to a point where we submit a shape file to them.
Sure.
And then, you know, elevation wise, we're just gonna take a look at it and see how it lays within the surroundings and see that we're not creating, you know, any obvious issues from an elevation standpoint. So,
Yeah, we have, obviously now that we have existing infrastructure, we gotta tie into a bunch of those items. With the warming house staying where it is, the shelters staying where they are, you got updating the parking lot is a small space to make sure it all
right.
flows where we want it to flow.
So review, January 8th, review playground design version 1 to be able to give to Woodseth. So that's the big thing is the shape.
The big thing's the shape for Widseth, and then the components of the playground for the playground company. So if we're like, too many spinners, I want to see an additional slide. And this is where I think some of the public engagement can come in, where the play panels, right? So like, do we want a kaleidoscope? Do we want tic-tac-toe? Do I want to pick dinosaurs? And so like, I think that's where we can get a lot of feedback from the public in terms of what kind of elements they would like to see some of those, and they can select some of those items. Single slides, double slides, curvy slides, tube slides, getting some input from them on that, I think would be helpful.
And does the playground company, so this is also part of my thing is like when you work with like a marketing agency or you work with a branding company, there's a degree in which like the professionals are the professionals and we're not the professionals.
Oh,
Do
for
they
sure.
have, do they have do they do part of this with us? Do they go like, or do they play, or maybe that already happened? Maybe that's all that happened
So
last year. Do they say,
in-
can we?
in January of last year, the Parks Commission kind of set some themes and overarching goals. And so within that, the main goal was like destination inclusive playground. That's what's outlined in our master plan. Within that, we wanted to keep more nature up north, boats, trains, Nisswa type themes as the carried through the park. And so that's kind of the framework that we set them off with. And this is the design that came back. So they are obviously the professionals. They're going to know what is required for safety and how the spacing of everything and what the ramp slopes are going to be. And they are the experts on that. And we set them with direction. If I like this type of spinner and they had that one in there, we can certainly ask for to swap some of the things out based on just preferential and then what they can make work within the space.
I do apologize. I'm catching up on a lot of these conversations because I wasn't here for them. So when we say destination inclusive, those were the two words. Destination meaning people want to go to it.
Yep.
They want to drive to it. And inclusive meaning it needs like all types of kids, no matter what sort of like, whether it's.
Also mean, different types of ages, abilities, backgrounds. Kind of a universal design, I think is what I wrote in the grant today.
Are there any playground elements that this company cannot provide? Like,
No.
Not to my knowledge.
so if we've seen.
So
it
Amber, I've
before,
asked this question
something like this,
before
Yeah.
and
provide it.
And
Paul
I
mentioned,
mean, they're the leaders in custom and then they're the leaders in inclusive play. And so if, I can't imagine they wouldn't be able to produce something that we see, by pictures or anything like
I mean,
that.
There's no turtles in it. Like, if there's anything this was known for, it's turtles. I can't believe I don't see a single turtle.
paint one on the sidewalk.
I mean, that just kind of blows my mind. Like, and that's where I go, the whole like tailoring it a little bit, where I go like, yeah, we have the train and all that, but we're Turtle Town guys.
Yeah.
Like, let's incorporate that. Let's get the turtles in there.
I like that.
Bruce, you were gonna say something?
well, first of all, Dan, my wife's bringing back some pictures of turtles from a community in Florida, and we'll show you those pictures. Those would be neat to have in our park. Yes.
Big turtles?
Yeah,
Bigger the better.
they're turtle sculptures, but I don't know if that's what you meant, but
Fun. Cool.
what I guess I was going to ask is this kind of goes back to Paul had mentioned earlier, and I wanted to bring it up. The surface material. I know I've asked before about, we've got these rubber beads that we've got planned versus other types of surface material, and the rubber is more expensive than sawdust, right? Or chips or whatever. What's the feeling of the commission for that?
I know there's gonna be some different opinions on this. This is just my opinion. If the goal is to make it all inclusive, which that is what it's designated, I do feel like it's a disservice if we don't go with something other than a poured in place material. I'm biased in the fact that I do have a son with disabilities, like he is a prime example of somebody who needs a poured in place material, but a mother or father with a stroller, a grandparent, or somebody who just tore their Achilles. We have an assisted living right next door to the park. Somebody in a wheelchair, a grandparent, a walker. I think it's a really important aspect. And like I said, you can also bring some topography and different elements to the playground through that surfacing with the right design elements, color, like on that one they had water, they have pathways with the surfacing. So you can integrate design and different things through the surfacing. Plus, it's the safest. It provides the best. I can't remember the terminology, but the best fall protection. So that would be my opinion, especially if we say an all-inclusive playground is what we want. As a commission, as a town community, if they're like, no, we don't need an all-inclusive, we just want a destination, then I would think that we could, go a different direction. But in my personal opinion, the important place to me is very important.
I would also argue it brings play because
Mhm.
kids, they like the feel of it. It can bring more active play as well.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you from a safety perspective and from an inclusive perspective.
I will say though, that I agree that a $300,000 or $250 or $1,000
Yeah.
price tag for surfacing is tough to swallow, but
Great.
So I would affirm what Paul is saying. Certainly if your two vision words are I think those can compete a little bit, but if it's all inclusive, if that's like the key, certainly. And if that's like, I don't know what was voted on and I don't know about all that. For me, I look at it and there's two pieces that concern me. One, there are a number of long-term health studies about the kinds of materials, whether it's playgrounds, whether it's, like sports facilities. There's just a lot of information. Like this has been studied.
Yeah.
Cancer and hormone altering, just a lot, especially hormone altering in women, just significant. And the idea of like little kids crawling and spending time on like 90 or 85 or whatever, like that is really concerning to me. Like, until we dug into that a little bit, I would just like, if we had to vote on it, it'd be an automatic no on my end, no matter what, because like these studies are real. And so I'd go, okay, what's the risk assessment of that? And what are we comfortable exposing our community to? So there's that side of it. And then when you think about like, $250,000, and for instance, the earlier question of like shade, right? What are shade and otherwise, what are all the different things that you could do with $250,000? Yeah. So I have, I think we both have relatively, but it comes back to what is the vision. And if it is that, I don't know how you do anything otherwise.
So what would be your suggestion?
I would say somebody on, probably other than me, because I'm already biased. I think somebody on the commission or tied to the commission look into some of the health studies. Or we seek out a professional on that. Because I wouldn't just trust me on it.
No.
So I would say we look into it. And at the same time, I would say let's get the price points on some organic materials for the floor of the park. Those would be my two.
So Dan, the studies you're referring to, is that on the rubber?
Yeah, yep. So whether it's the port in place or even just like the recycled tires, like there's studies on just recycled tires, like basically when you start getting into non-organic material.
Yeah. And I know like from a city standpoint, they typically have to order something that's CPSC certified, which is like almost like your four options. You have the wood chips. It's like an engineered dyed wood chip. It's not like they're going to Landsberg and getting their wood chips. It's like they're buying it through or like a company that specifically does playgrounds. And I don't know I know it's like it's not organic.
Yeah.
There's, like you said, there's the rubber, the crushed up rubber that's also dyed.
Yeah.
You have artificial turf.
Yeah.
And you have port in place. Those are kind of like your four options. And there might be more out there. Those are like the four main ones that you'd see on 99% of playgrounds. But I think it's worth exploring, to your point.
Yeah, me too.
I would think that there'd be more options out there, but those are kind of the standard.
I mean, I can certainly ask the playground company. What we have right now is engineered wood fiber wood chips.
Yeah.
That is an acceptable ADA surfacing. So that is completely fine to do a whole park with wood chips. That satisfies the grant criteria, and you just still put it at its appropriate fall depth. Both have different kinds of maintenance. You're supposed to fluff the wood chips, and we've seen the divots under the swings. We've probably all been to playgrounds where a chunk of the port in place has been ripped out and it doesn't look so awesome anymore, right? For anyone that's not sure what port in place is, Eagleville Elementary just did their new playground in that. So if you're out perusing playgrounds, that's one to go look at. And so both are acceptable, and a hybrid is acceptable.
So I was gonna ask, can you do a hybrid?
You can do a hybrid. In places, one of the cons is now the wood chips are on the port in place and now you're blowing off the wood chips, right? So like they all have just their pros and cons. I think there's all of these truths coexist together. And it's just finding what is best for us and our situation, our budget, our abilities, our capabilities, and our town's desires. And that's what we are wrestling with here tonight. But for the budget, I need to know which one to put in. So that's where the decision has to be made.
I guess when you've talked to the DNR, have they mentioned anything about, you know, is there better odds of getting something like this if we do go, all inclusive? Or
They've said they've
destination?
awarded all types of surfacing
They have, okay.
or varieties in surfacing.
That doesn't,
Because that was one of my questions, like if that's a differentiator on if you get the grant or not get the grant, like I think, you know, if you want the grant, then the grant would cover the port in place
Right.
aspect of it. So yes, that was a question that I did ask them and it didn't sound like it was a disqualifier to not do port in place.
okay.
Gonna ask if it was more natural, if that would provide.
And I don't think on
some
the contrary, I don't think that's, you know, I think it's, yeah, overall
Okay.
safety, accessibility, and, you know, when we're looking at the park as a whole and we're looking at the sidewalks and, you know, the visibility and the safety, and we can tie in sight lines and all those types of things that might aid in our case.
Well, so Paul, I don't know if you were volunteering, but if there's a couple of you that want to hook up with Amber and the playground company in the next couple of weeks and try to come up with some more unique stuff, I thank you for that, and I'd applaud you to do that. I'm just, again, kind of pushing us to keep on track here to not have it get to the point where we're not going to be able to do something.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Bruce. I mean, it would be hard to lose momentum at this point we've gone from 0 to 100 in a matter of like 2 weeks, it seems like. And so it would be hard to lose that. So I do get the importance of trying to move this thing forward quickly. And just with now the granted money from city council, I think that can give us momentum, and not only the DNR grant, but it can maybe give us avenues for other grants too, knowing we've got a little bit of a pot of money to work with.
Yeah, good point. So, I mean, my suggestion would be is if a couple of you want to work with Amber and the playground company to fine tune the design a little bit, go for that. Maybe we can get some feedback, Amber, from the company on, some different materials and see by our February meeting if we can get a consensus on that. I do have one request, which I mentioned before. I'd like to have at least eight benches. Corners, 2 at each corner. That says a grandpa talking.
Mhm.
The bench is outside of the footprint, right? If we do the,
Yes,
okay,
correct.
so, yeah,
This does actually have benches within the footprint as well. So kind of, both. Throughout there's different like log type benches to sit on. There's acorn chair. I've looked at this extensively in the last week. But you have like acorn benches, you have these log benches to sit on. And then there's regular benches, and so you can have benches inside, you can have benches outside, we can always add benches later, we can take sponsorship for benches, like all sorts of ways to go about it. Style of benches. They're only gonna offer so many styles, right? So
But if we have the benches inside the playground, does that eliminate our possibility of some of the equipment we might be able to have?
potentially these are in this particular design, they're more like a log.
I think that's probably
That
for
fit-
kids too, right?
Yeah, and that's a place to sit, it's a place to run and jump, and
Yeah.
kids will play on it and
Perfect.
parents will sit on it. So I see it as a dual functioning in this particular scenario. But yes, definitely something to think about of what's inside the playground and what's taking up space and what's outside the playground, and then what this company offers versus going with a different company.
Yeah.
So
so
Food-
what
food
do
for
we
thought.
have to do tonight?
I'm collecting feedback tonight. Do we want I can only have two people for a subcommittee. Do we want to have anyone meet with the playground company to talk design further? Or would you like me to take this direction and kind of run with it?
I'd like to do a meeting with the playground company.
I guess I would too.
Can I send you, well, I have like a park that
Yeah.
I find ideal. I'll just
Mhm.
send you that information.
Send
Yeah.
it to,
Send it to me.
send it to Amber,
Okay.
and then
Yep.
Amber can forward it to me.
Yeah, if you guys see parks or love parks, you can go, I have, landscape structures. I've been doing work. It's flagged, all sorts of stuff. I have their catalog here. You can go online. You can look at landscape structures. You can look at flagship recreation. You can send me playgrounds for inspiration. Obviously, different playground companies might have different copyrights on certain items, that they can't copycat, but they could find a comparable. So yes, if you guys have inspirations and you want to send them to me,
Yep.
I will take them. And for Paul and Dan, I will look to set up something as soon as possible. Once we get work on the shape file. You want to be invited too, Dave?
No, I wasn't going that direction. I was going to offer up that we could give you our baseline survey.
That'd
So
be
that you
great.
have that and you can, when it goes to the shape
That'd be
question,
great.
we can drop off some bum wad and you guys can go draw whatever you
That'd be great.
would like to see.
Love that.
Thanks,
Dave.
give you some materials to
Yeah.
work with. And then that would be great feedback back to us, so we get it headed in the direction that you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have one other question.
Yep.
When it comes to, this is great because I'm starting to understand what is important to you. And when it comes to the grant amount and what you're going to apply for, cost questions start to really come into play. You got an expensive surfacing material potentially that's going to weigh into this. The grant itself will allow things like driveway accesses and parking and access ways to be 40% of the total project. So if you wanted to try to maximize the grant, you could potentially go that route. But then again, that might, take away from a material that you really want. And you would not include that in your grant application. And so, and in my experience, there's, everybody's trying to make their application look the best, so they get it awarded. And there's always a little bit of strategy in how you go about that. Is maximizing it to the full 500,000 a good strategy, or is it not? Is it what you need? Can you really demonstrate the need to fill the purposes that you have? And I always go back to, and don't think less of me for this because it's kind of a crude statement, but there was a really wise old mayor that told me once that pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. And we were working on a grant application. And that was his viewpoint. And I always remembered that because it kind of makes some sense. You got to think about what the grant application reviewers are thinking about your application.
Dave, that's a great point that we actually had the same phrasing in tax work too. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. You're right. So I think what I hear you saying is if we go right to the 500,000, does that really impact when the reviewer's looking at it because we're just adding things that maybe don't necessarily impact. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, that's it.
Everything has to have a place and a purpose.
Yeah. And have we really thought well about what we need?
Yeah.
And does that come through the application?
Yes.
Dave, from the standpoint of you and your firm, the timeline that Amber has laid out here, do you see a problem with you guys being able to work within that time frame?
No, I don't see a problem. You know, if we can be diligent and keep working it forward within the next couple of weeks, try to get the shape nailed down.
Yeah.
I think that'll,
I do think it's important that we get the community feedback, with the knowledge for all of us that this is not even close to maybe the final design. But based on the timeline, I think it's most appropriate so their feedback can get into a revision before it gets submitted.
Mhm.
Unless you guys have any
How do-
serious concerns on that.
How do you wanna approach the public on it? Are you gonna just have it be what do you think? Or is it here's 3 ideas, or is it?
The playground company actually had a lot of different ideas and gave me a few different examples. One, I think we can have kind of similar to the open house that we did with the master plan, where you have some picture boards. There's an example he showed as different elements, and we can have photos of separate elements, and you can kind of vote on different things. Or like I said, here's 6 different play panel options. Vote for which ones you like the best. And then, in ways to keep kids busy, and you put out, butcher block paper, and kids can draw what they most love about the park, and just different ways to engage people and different learning styles and different visuals, were some of the examples that they gave.
Do you feel like February 10th is an appropriate timeline?
Oh, this timeline is extremely stressful to me, the whole thing of it. But in order to incorporate the community's feedback into the grant, I think it's 100% appropriate.
Yeah.
And not to say that it's the only open house either. The grant says you need a 30-day period. So it would be an open house plus available here at City Hall.
Yeah, you'd want to do the open house early enough, because if you do get significant feedback to make changes, you said the company's going to take 2 weeks
Yeah.
to incorporate that, and
And so that's why I picked February 10th. So then they'd have 2 weeks to make edits before our March meeting and any final tweaks before submission. Okay, I will circle back with Paul and Dan for a subcommittee. Anyone else, even the public, if you're listening, send me your favorite pictures, email them to me because I love playgrounds. And we'll get rolling on this. Any other final thoughts?
Just a subcommittee quick question. Do we have to ratify the subcommittee like via vote or anything like that? Okay.
You're in, you volunteered.
well, and yeah, thank you both for volunteering. I appreciate that.
Test our relationship.
Any other thoughts on the playground? Any questions before we kind of roll on?
It's exciting. It's fast, but it's exciting. I'm thankful for council for kind of hopping on board and getting, hopefully rallying the city around this. And so, yeah, it's just a matter of getting her done now.
Yes.
Get her done.
Yes. Awesome. Cool. Our next meeting, February 5th. And we'll keep plucking away at it. If there's no other final comments or discussions, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Dan. Alrighty, all in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you.